why don't you tell me when you were born and who your parents were?
All right, dear. My parents was David Elmer Hoke, and he married Agnes Blakeney Wells from Ligonier. And they had 8 children, 7 girls and 1 boy. Do you want me to tell you their names?
Go ahead.
All right.
This is your
The
day.
oldest daughter was Hazel Dean, and my brother was David Weigel. It was a name that they gave him from my father's side. And then Annetta Blanche, and Anna Florence, Edith Wells. That was my mother's maiden name, Wells. And then Agnes Francis, and Muriel Corrine, and Della Almerta. That was the children they had, and we lived on a very large farm, 265 acres. And the home was a red brick, 15 rooms. Now can you imagine? 15 rooms, 5 stairways, and we never worked away, not one of us. We worked right there with Dad and Mother on the farm. And so he gave us our choice of what we wanted to do, if we wanted to study music or go on to school. So he chose violin for me. Well, every one of them. Hazel studied piano and voice. Blanche studied piano, and she was a school teacher. She graduated and was a school teacher, and she studied piano and taught piano. And Florence studied violin. Edith studied piano, and Frances never cared too much about any, but she did learn to play the piano. Then I studied. My dad said to me, I want you to study violin and go through with it. And I said, why? He said, because I know you'll finish. So I did, and when I finished and was married, why, they presented me one year for my birthday, a violin, a copy of Antonio Stradivarius. I still have it. And then my younger sister, she studied piano. She was wonderful on the piano. And my dad had his Hoke Orchestra. And there was so many violins, mandolin, guitar, and the horn, and the piano. And we did quite a bit of entertaining. Now that was our lifestyle besides the farming, you know. And but it was a large family.
And you were born in
1905, September the 29th, 1905.
And what were your mother's parents' names and your father's parents' names?
Well, now my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side was Aaron Wells. And my grandma's name was, well, it would have to be, let me see, what was her name? We always just said Granny. I don't know. I'll have to look that up in the genealogy. And she was born and raised in Ligonier. And her mother taught school 15 years and tutored ones in Ligonier besides that, and was a Bible teacher. I must not forget that. And then on my father's side, they 3 brothers came from Germany, Paul, Jacob, and John. And Paul took the Espy place below the Wesley Chapel Church, that farm. and Jacob, took over in by Fayette, and John took out by Mendon, a farm. And they chipped their names on the blocks that was in the house and under, like John Hoke, Paul Hoke, and Jacob Hoke. And my grandfather, I'm going to tell you what he
Which
named.
one was he?
Well, Paul was my grandfather, my great grandfather. I was Paul, David, Elmer, and Muriel. I was the fourth generation down here in this country. And
And what was your grandmother's name?
why, her name was Catherine Weigel.
So it was Elmer and Catherine.
No, it was Paul. This was Paul, my great-grandfather, married Catherine Weigel. She came from Holland, and he came from Germany. And they got married, and when he came from Germany, he brought several things, which I have, the beer stein from Germany. And he had the big pewter plate, which he and his wife, Catherine Weigel, ate their wedding dinner off of. And he gave that to David. That was back in 17-something. And let me see now, what else can I tell you?
How many children did they have?
Oh my, I'd have to get the genealogy out to see. It was a good many. And wish I had the number. But my dad had Martin, Uncle Martin, Uncle Uriah, Uncle Ira, and my dad. There was 4 sons. Then there was Catherine. She married a Houston. And Hannah married a Stans. And his one sister married Lowe, Lowe. What was her name, Ernie? George and
Hattie.
What?
Hattie.
No, Hattie was married to George.
George Minota.
George. This was George, and he was married to my dad's sister. And I think there was about 8 in their family altogether. There was 4 boys, 4 girls. My dad's family. My mother's family, there was 3 girls, 1 boy.
And then you met your husband and got married what year and what day?
What?
Then you met your husband.
See, we went to the same school. And then I wouldn't have thought ever of marrying Clarence Brown, because I really wasn't interested then. And but I can remember things about him, mind. I can remember his light curly hair, just one ringlet after another all over his head. And of course he was a couple grades ahead of me. And of course then we didn't think of boys, you know, like they do today at an early age. And you take the minister that married us. We thought a great lot of each other. And that's why we have kept in touch. He was just a wonderful person. He played the piano like Liberace. He played the violin. He studied that when he was in college. And we had many a wonderful time playing music together. And
Well, what year did you get married?
I got married June the 6th, 1923. our first son was born May the 13th, 1924. That's Junior. And of course we had, you want me to tell you the names of them?
Go ahead.
All right. Junior was our first son. He was named after his father, Clarence Lurie. And then Carl Eugene, the second son. And the third was a daughter, Muriel Corrine, named after her mother, which the first one was named after his father. And then came Richard Calvin. Now, Mother wanted me to name him Calvin after her grandfather, which was a Presbyterian minister, Calvin McKelvey. Richard, I put the Richard to it, but she wanted the Calvin. So I named him Richard Calvin. And then the next one, I thought, now I'm going to get one of my family names in there. So Ernie was the next one. I named him Ernest Hope Brown, and which pleased Dad an awfully lot. And then after Ernie was Dwight.
Where did Coleman come from?
Well, it was a name that I really did like. I always liked that name, Coleman. And so I got that Coleman in there, Dwight. And you see, what I was doing was I was following my father's initials, Dwight Coleman, D.E., you see. Mm-hmm. And then there was more when Donnie Lane came along, well, I'll get to that. Then after your daddy, Dwight Coleman, was Shirley. And I liked Shirley Joan. And so we named her Shirley Joan. And Daddy would always say, my little girl. And she was little. She weighed 6 pounds. And to this day, she's not too big. But
she'll be glad to hear that on tape.
No, she's not too big. And she, then after her came Dale Emerson. Well, I got my D.E. in there again for my dad, Dale Emerson, D.E. And then Donnie Lane, D.E. So I worked that out pretty well. And it worked out wonderful. And Daddy and I raised a wonderful family, I must say.
So when did you start building and move this? Did you have Uncle Junior?
Oh, I've got to tell you this. We went on our wedding trip. We was gone 2 weeks. And when we came back, it was on a Saturday. And Dad and Mother said, well, now have you any plans? Do you know what you're going to do? And I said, oh, Dad, I never thought of that while we were away. I said, I just guess I was too attached to you and Mother. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you something. We were doing your thinking. I said, you were doing our thinking? I said, oh, you will give us time to talk this over and tell you what we came up with. And he said, oh, sure, but he said, we want you to stay right here on the farm with us. Your mother and I needs help. And so we talked it over and we decided we'd stay right with them. We was with them 8 years. And it was a beautiful life, let me tell you.
So you had, what, at least 3 children by then, right?
No, I only had 2.
You only had 2.
Yes, see, Junior and Carl was born on the farm. Then Corrine was born up here, and from her on down. Now, Donnie Lane was born in the Mount Pleasant Hospital. That's the first one born in the hospital. But,
was the house this size?
Oh, yes.
The original house was this one.
This one right here. Yes. And when he come home one day, and he said, you know, I'm going to tell you what I've been thinking about. We bought the ground, the 3 acres of ground here when we were married in 23. And so he said, I'll tell you what I've been thinking about. He said, I think I'm going to start our home over at Mount Nebo. Oh, I said, where? He said, Mount Nebo. I said, I'll never live there. I was just so attached to my father and mother. And so he said, you won't live there. Well, he said, I'm going to build. And I thought, what am I going to do? How can I leave Dad and Mother? And if we'd have just have known then that this day would come, that the man that bought it is so wealthy from the farm, the gas wells that has been drilled there, and the ground that he has sold off. And people have said, oh, what was wrong with you hook girls that you didn't buy that farm? Well, we didn't know then, you see. Everyone was striving to get their own home. So I know I cried every day for a year after we moved in here. I missed my daddy and mother so. And it was sad. I should have never have gone from them because they were getting up in years. And but when he said about moving or building here, I said, I'll never live there.
Well, was that
Now, you can't get me away.
Well, now, Dad lived, he was like you with your parents, he lived right next to you, and Uncle Warnie lived here.
And you know what he named Dad up there? He'd say to me, he'd be out on the patio there rocking with his blue coat on and his cap. He'd say, Mother, this is my little mansion. I said, sure it is. That's your mansion. And he liked it. And, you know, Missy, I was right here. I could tell every time with his sickness and all, you know. I'd watch him awfully close. And he was a wonderful man, let me tell you. He wanted education. And I thought, well, he's not too good, so we'll see he gets his education. So Daddy and I did it all. And do you know what I'll still say when I'm out on the porch swing? Dwight, why did you leave me? I said to our minister, you know, that was Reverend Morris. I said, Reverend Morris, will God hold me for saying this? No, he said, God understands your weakness. No, he wouldn't. And so then we lived here and we had some more children. And it's been a beautiful life.
How many grandchildren do you have now? Do you know?
24.
And what about great?
Great.
Isn't it about 11?
Well, 12.
12.
No, I guess 13. It would be 13 with Rachel, wouldn't it?
13.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was 11.
Yes.
Why don't you tell a story about Dwighty? You were telling us earlier about him and Blackie. You said earlier.
Oh my, yes. I'd go up there, you know, and Blackie would have the one corner of the blanket in his mouth, and Dwight would have a cross from it. And Dwight would be pulling, Blackie would be pulling. Oh, they was just having a big time. And, you know, now, I'm not a lover of dogs. Never was, 'cause I never could touch them. And I don't know why, and I couldn't pick up a cat. And so I would go up when your mother got a job at the hospital, and I would get Blackie every day and bring him down here. And I always rolled up an old newspaper, and I thought, now if he goes to run away from him, I'll just rattle this. So I said, now Blackie, don't you run away from me, because I am getting old and I can't run after you. So I said, after a few times bringing him down here to the door, he would come down himself and wait there. So I brought a rug out of the cellar, put here by my chair, and I said, now Blackie, that's for you to lay on. But you know, I'm going to tell you, when Dwighty was in kindergarten. That would be kindergarten till 12 o'clock, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Just about the time that the bus was coming over the hill, he'd go to the door and he'd get to barking. And I'd go to the door till I got on to what he was meaning. He knew that Dwighty was coming. Now how, I don't know. And he would go out here and throw himself out on the grass and wait till the bus would stop right here in front of the house. Then we'd come in here and Dwighty would say, Grandma, how about a cup of tea and a peanut butter sandwich? Oh, sure. I said, my goodness, yes. Well, you'll never know how happy I was that I could do that. I was just so glad that I could make him a sandwich and make him a cup of tea. And so then he would stay here. And oh, it was just heavenly.
Well, that's what, when I was at the reunion, that's what Ricky and all them were saying. You could always go down to Grandma's,
Mm-hmm.
and she always had you a cup of tea, and she always had the cookies in the middle drawer.
Yes. Yes, I loved the cookies. That's what Donnie Kimball said. He said, you know, Grandma, I never enjoyed your apricot cookies till I was out in Oklahoma. He said, I went shopping one day and I saw the apricot cookies. And he said, I bought 2 like we had out here, 2 boxes. And he said, it just brought back memories of you keeping those cookies on hands for the grandchildren. And oh, I love doing things like that. Is it time to turn off? And so, no, I enjoyed my grandchildren. I dearly loved my grandchildren.
Now,
And
what about the barn back here? Didn't Uncle Dick or somebody do something to the barn, or didn't it burn down or something?
oh yes, we had a barn back there. We had a cow. Well, at one time we had 2 cows because we had enough ground back there that we could have 2 cows. I churned and made butter, and we had our milk for the family. Then we had a place for chickens. Every fall, we'd go down here to a farm towards Dawson, and we'd buy around 35 chickens. We'd take roosters and hens, you know. We wanted for laying, and it was just great. We had our own eggs. One time, we butchered 5 hogs back here that we had raised. And of course, that raising our own meat and everything, we'd always have a steer to have butchered and put in the deep freeze. So, and we went through a depression. We mustn't forget that. Daddy and I went through a depression. He didn't have work for a long, long time. And his uncle out here was in the milk business. He came out one day and he rapped on the door and he said, Clarence, I need someone to help me. Will you come out and work for me? And Clarence said, well, sure. So he worked. He said, I'll give you 2 meals and $2 a day. Now imagine. That was during the Depression. So Daddy took it and helped his uncle out. And then he had, I think it was 41 years, 40 or 41 years, which was it, Ernie, with U.S. Steel.
And how did he die?
Died in the mill. And dearie, it's this way. It's only a guess, you know, how he died.
And what day was it?
It was on a Sunday. And so when the doctor called me, he called me and, well, Dick had answered. He said, Mother, it's the mill calling. Oh, I thought, what? And it was the doctor from the mill, or one of the men from the mill there. He said, well, I hate to tell you, but your husband passed away. I said, oh no, he just could not have passed away. I said, what's wrong? He said, a heart attack. Well, now I said, look here, I just had him to 2 doctors 2 weeks ago. 2 good doctors. And I said the only thing that he had was a misbeat, which but 2 doctors, Dr. Stam and Dr. Gilbert, told him 90% of our people are walking around with a misbeat. And so I said he has a son down. I told him what place it was down in the mill working. Give him his name. I said, would you go and get him and bring him up to his daddy? And he said yes. So they did. And
Who was that? Uncle Carl?
no, that was Junior.
Uncle Junior?
Uh-huh. And too bad.
What year was it?
60, March the 3rd.
So how old would Aunt Dawn have been? Just a baby?
She was just graduating.
Oh.
Graduating from high school that year. And so it was sad, let me tell you. So it was a few years after, the one that took his place in the mill. I got a hold of him and talked to him. I said, now it's time that I can talk about this. I said, Jim, I want to know what happened to Daddy. He said, well, he was either hit in the head with the crane or he fell off of the tractor. See, there was a place on his head about like that, a deep cut. And I didn't know that till he was dead 6 months. And so that's I've lived with that.
Tell us about the day where you were and what happened when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. I know you remember that.
Do I remember that? Oh, you see, my nephew was over there. That's Elmer Hickson.
He's telling us about Pearl Harbor.
I can't. Oh, is that Lois?
Yes.
Yes.
He's telling us about Pearl Harbor.
Oh, that was bad. Oh, that was bad. My goodness. And my nephew